Ready, guys. Be right back. I'll let you listen to this soothing save room theme inspired music. Something that was sorely missing Resident Evil 6. I'm back. Got a lot to dig through. Okay, here we go, guys. We can see it. Okay, History of Resident Evil. 44 pages. Alright, here we go, guys. Here we go. I'm going to be reading basically this entire episode. Okay, 1960s. Gotta get my good reading voice on. Engineer Michael Warren begins the electrification of Raccoon City. The fifth head of the Ashford family, Edward Ashford, begins his research into what would later become known as the progenitor virus. 1962, Oswald E. Spencer enlists architect George Trevor to design and construct a reclusive mansion on the outskirts of Raccoon City, where the events of Resident Evil 1 transpired. 1966, December, Oswald E. Spencer, James Marcus, and Edward Ashford officially established the progenitor virus, which reconstitutes a living organism's DNA. 1967, November, the construction of the mansion and lab facilities in the Arklay Mountains is completed. Jessica and Lisa Trevor are injected with a variant of the progenitor virus. The virus fails to establish itself in Jessica, and she is subsequently disposed of. The virus shows promise in Lisa. As a result, she is placed under close observation. George Trevor is chosen to be a test subject, however, due to his intimate knowledge of the mansion facility, he's disposed of instead. Yeah, she is herself a mini-boss in the original game. Very, very sad story, Lisa's. 1968, construction of Raccoon City's public transit trolleys begins in Europe, and they are quickly put into use within the city. Spencer founds the pharmaceutical company Umbrella with Marcus and Edward Ashford. The company is established to mask their biological research. The organization is basically behind all these crazy apocalyptic scenarios. July, Edward Ashford contracts the progenitor virus and dies. His son, Alexander Ashford, succeeds him as head of the Ashford family. August, the Umbrella training facility is established in the Arklay Mountains with Marcus appointed as director. 1969, February, Alexander Ashford begins to design a facility in Antarctica. He secretly makes plans to build an underground laboratory for the purpose of the Code Veronica project. We actually skipped that title, so I mean, I might try to play it if they come out with a remake. November, Umbrella's Antarctic base and research facilities are completed. The Code Veronica project, 1971, is successful. The twins Alfred and Alexia Ashford are born. What is the Veronica project? Doesn't actually say. It just says for the purpose of the Code Veronica project. Presumably for Ashford to continue his bloodline, although why he had to do that in a laboratory as opposed to the conventional method is not clear. Maybe perhaps had something to do with the virus, I don't know. Yeah, so the twins, the Ashfords, were born. 1977, Albert Wesker and William Birkin joined the training facility as prospective managers. Rather coincidentally, their son and daughter joined forces for the events of RE6, which you know, Jake and Sherry. So history is repeating itself. Marcus successfully develops the T-virus, 1978. July, the closure of the training facility is finalized. Wesker and Birkin transfer their T-virus research to the Arklay Research Facility. Marcus continues his own research in the closed-down training facility. Yeah, a lot of viruses. Progenitor, T-virus. I believe there will be at least 2 other viruses we're going to read about. 1981 July. Although only 10 years old, Alexia Ashford graduates at the top of her class from a prestigious university. Birkin begins to view Alexia as a rival. 1982. Alexia injects her father, Alexander, with the T. Veronica virus. Okay, that's another virus. Okay. But the experiment ends in failure. Why she would try to do that is beyond me. Maybe to try to recreate the Wesker effect. 1983 December. Wesker researched secondary exposure to the T-virus. He begins to have reservations about Spencer's plans. Alexia injects herself with the T. Veronica virus and enters a 15-year cryogenic sleep. To maintain the secrecy of this plan, it's reported that she died of accidental exposure to the virus. Who? Alexia? Okay. 1987. Michael Warren becomes mayor of Raccoon City. 1988. Wesker, under orders from Spencer, assassinates Marcus. Under Birkin's guidance, the T-virus program begins development of the BOW Tyrant. Very annoying enemy we saw in Resident Evil 2. Umbrella begins work on the Nemesis project at its 6th European research facility, one of our favorite unkillable enemies. 1991, Umbrella begins construction of an expansive underground laboratory beneath Raccoon City. Spencer approves Birkin's G-virus, so this is the 3rd virus, well, 4th if you count the Veronica virus, and work begins on it. Wesker is transferred to the information department. Oops, skipped one. Right. 1992, Umbrella contributes funds for the refurbishment of City Hall and the building of the General Hospital. A statue of Michael Warren is erected in City Hall. 1993, Raccoon City Police Chief Brian Irons begins conducting negotiations with Umbrella. Birkin transfers to the underground lab in Raccoon City. Clandestine meetings with Irons begins. Alfred Ashford graduates from a university in England and becomes director of the Antarctic facility. He rises up the ranks to eventually become an executive of Umbrella, and then director of Rockford Island. December, a training facility for the anti-BOW squad members is completed. Yeah, the Antarctic facility is itself featured in Resident Evil 5, as you might recall. 1994, John from the Chicago lab. Whatever happened to his son? Wait. Okay, that is the son. Alright, Alfred, where was it? Yeah, Alexander. Okay, and it's his son, Alfred. Okay, yeah. Where are we now? We're like 1993? Yeah. His daughter, Alexia, is presumably still in stasis, or whatever it's called. Sleep. Alright. 1994. John from the Chicago lab takes over for Birkin at the Arklay Research Facility. Alfred builds a private mansion and prison on Rockford Island. You got me. I don't know which game I was in. 1996. Raccoon City Police Department STARS team is founded with Wesker as captain. So this is all before the events of Resident Evil 1. Later, the Umbrella Special Forces undergoes combat training at Rockford Island. 1998 May. A mysterious clone of Marcus appears at the Umbrella training facility. There's a large-scale viral leak at the Arklay mansion. The research lab there is destroyed. Cerberus claims its first victim, a 20-year-old woman whose body is found dismembered. June. Cerberus sightings are reported in a local Raccoon City magazine. Does not ring any bells, actually. Even after having played through the first 7 games, not counting Veronica. July. 2 groups were sent to investigate the training facility. The first one is wiped out by BOWs located on the premises. There is an increase in reports of accidents and missing persons in the Arklay Mountains. The city sends the STARS Bravo team to investigate. Bravo team's helicopter experiences engine trouble for unknown reasons and is forced to put down in the Arklay Mountains. Bravo team takes the Ecliptic Express to investigate the training facility, which is later destroyed. Alpha team is sent out to search for Bravo team when communication is lost. So these are about the time of the events of Resident Evil 1. The occurrence of the mansion incident. Bravo team leader Enrico Marini learns Wesker's true identity. Wesker murders Enrico. Yep, none of the Bravo team survives, essentially. Ravaged by the virus, the mansion and the lab are destroyed. On the A team were Wesker, Jill Valentine, and Chris. Okay, and these are the other ones. Rebecca Chambers. Yeah, Rebecca Chambers lives. Ravaged by the virus, the mansion and the lab are destroyed. 4 members of the Alpha team and 1 member of the Bravo team escaped the catastrophe. Survivors. So, I guess Barry or Brad Vickers were the surviving member of the Bravo team. I can't remember. Chris, Jill, Barry, Brad, and Rebecca Chambers. Wesker escapes the Arklay research facility before it's destroyed. Wesker is like the leader of the team, basically. August former STARS member Chris Redfield learns of the G-Virus and heads to Europe to investigate the Umbrella. The G-Virus would be the 4th. Is this the 4th or 5th virus? I don't remember, lost track. Let's see. T-Virus, Veronica virus, Progenitor virus, G-Virus, T-Virus. So, yeah, that's 5, right? September, the virus spread throughout Raccoon City via infected mice. The city is declared a biohazard as incidents of cannibalism continue to rise. Birkin completes work on the G-Virus. The zombie horde attacks the city's police station. Those were the events of RE2. What virus? The G-Virus. The police station is destroyed, and Chief Irons descends into mania. Warren escapes the city but leaves his daughter behind. Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, UBCS, arrives in the city to begin rescue operations. Rookie police officer Leon S. Kennedy arrives in the city at the same time as Claire Redfield. Those are the events of RE3. Umbrella deploys, you can see how like RE2 and RE3 overlap in terms of their storylines and developments. Umbrella deploys the BOW Nemesis T-Type into the city, and it begins its hunt for former STARS member Jill Valentine, again, RE3. Umbrella deploys mass-produced tyrants into the city. Very annoying enemy, by the way. Extremely annoying enemy. Leon and Claire escape the city with William and Annette Birkin's daughter, Sherry, who will be one of the playable characters in RE6. And they actually do reference that in RE6, which we know from Sherry's dialogue. Although I don't have good recollection of that. With the arrival of the original events, I mean. With the arrival of the U.S. military, the city is placed under martial law. BCS survivors are exploited by Umbrella's official observer of the situation, Nikolai Genovaev, and they die off one by one. The hospital is destroyed. I hardly remember any of that. Like, just very forgettable RE2 and 3. They both seem to, like, just blend together. Ada Wong and Hunk each acquire samples of the G-Virus. I believe at the end of RE2 that occurred. The underground lab in Raccoon City is destroyed. October. Again, that was the end of RE2. The US government decides to eliminate the virus threat by destroying Raccoon City with a missile strike. I believe these were the events of Revelations, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Raccoon City, or was it... I think I'm misremembering something. It had a specific name. I can't remember right now. I'm sure it'll come up in these files. December. Claire infiltrates the Paris laboratory only to be captured and imprisoned on Rockford Island. Wesker attacks the island with his own private force and releases the T-Virus onto the island. Claire escapes from prison and sends an email to Leon asking for help. Her location is made known to Chris. Yeah, I assume these were the events of one of the revelations. I can't quite recall. Jill escapes Raccoon City and goes to Chris's apartment, but he's already left for Rockford Island. Alfred Ashford escapes the island. Chris arrives at Rockford Island and finds Wesker. Alexia Ashford wakes up from her cryogenic sleep at the Antarctic base. Alfred dies shortly after. That would be her brother. Kind of confusing. Claire and Chris are reunited at the Antarctic base, and together they defeat Alexia. They escape before the base is destroyed. I don't recall at all that happening. If that did happen, I assume it was during the events of either Revelations or 5. Kind of confusing. 2002, Jack Krauser fakes his own death and joins Wesker's secret organization. But that's prior to RE4. 2003, February, Chris and Jill take part in the mission to destroy the Umbrella Caucasus research facility in Russia. They were successful in destroying a new BOW known as the Alos. U.S. President's daughter, Ashley Graham, is kidnapped by the religious group known as Los Illuminados. The actual kidnapping was carried out by Krauser. Those are the events of RE4. Leon Kennedy was scheduled to join Ashley's Secret Service detail, but is ordered to find her instead. Leon Kennedy is injected with the Las Plagas parasite, so that is the 6th virus at this point in the story. By Los Illuminados. Las Plagas. After that, he and Ashley, who is also infected with the same parasite, take shelter in a church. After escaping the village, Leon and Ashley are forced to seek refuge in an old castle, but Ashley is once again apprehended. This time, she is taken to an isolated island by Krauser under the orders of Ramon Salazar, the 8th head of the Salazar family. Leon confronts Salazar and defeats him. RE4. Leon heads to the island to find Ashley, and it's there that he defeats both Jack Krauser and Osmond Sadler, the leader of the Los Illuminados cults. Leon and Ashley use the facility on the island to remove the parasites. Ada Wong steals the Las Plagas parasite sample from Leon. Leon and Ashley escape from the island by jet ski. Again, just a very good story. Sheesh. They totally could make a amazing film based on this. Death Island was not a bad film. You can find my review on TikTok. ESAA. It just wasn't as comprehensive as this. It doesn't show all the events that took place. On the annihilation of Raccoon City, Umbrella was hit hard with multiple lawsuits for their involvement in the incident. There was an organization that was hit even harder by the fallout of that incident, the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium, an organization comprised of pharmaceutical companies from around the world. Once I read it, I assume I would know it. I didn't notice any references to Revelations. I assume it was somewhere in there. Umbrella's development of and experimentation with bioorganic weapons, along with the sale of these weapons on the black market, caused people to distrust the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium, and the fact the Umbrella was an executive board member only deepened their misgivings. Things had ended there. The consortium may have just escaped with a tarnished reputation. In today's world, medicine is an integral part of almost all medical procedures. The public is also quite informed when it comes to which medications are trusted and which are not. The population loses trust in the pharmaceutical company responsible for creating certain medications and could quickly bankrupt said company. The Umbrella trials took a turn for the worse for the consortium when prosecutors presented evidence that incriminated many other pharmaceutical companies. Prosecutors showed the Umbrella acquired medicines and techniques developed by other companies and employed them in their own bioweapons research. They commissioned each of the respective companies to only partially develop certain medications so that they could not be traced to what was ultimately being developed. The responsible companies thus unwittingly contributed to the development of bioweapons. Until this development in the case, the consortium looked at the lawsuits as Umbrella's problem. Now the problem was thrust into their laps as well. The companies that were linked to Umbrella faced the possibility of sharing blame for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, and if Umbrella lost lawsuits, they would face bankruptcy as well. Even if Umbrella was not guilty of any wrongdoing, the negative publicity would not only be disastrous for sales, but the governments of the world would revoke the company's permits to sell their products. I think Revelations came out prior to this, so I assume that the events would be somewhere in here. Not having permission to distribute their products worldwide would effectively dismantle their businesses. The pharmaceutical companies realized they had no choice but to take drastic measures to counter dismal prospects. The consortium decided to strike a deal with the prosecutors. They would put all their efforts into assisting the case against Umbrella, even to the point of turning over any internal company documentation. Prosecutors in the case, being obsessed with seeing Umbrella fall, agreed to accept the help of the consortium's companies, and in return they would pursue legal action against them. In 2003, Umbrella was found guilty on all charges. With its fall, the scandal that rocked the pharmaceutical industry to its core would finally be put to rest. Umbrella's dismantlement led to an unforeseen situation. In the fallout of Umbrellica's collapse, BOWs began to show up on the black market. The weapons wound up in the hands of terrorists. What does BOW even stand for? Something weapon, I'm sure. Biological something weapon. Okay. Guerrilla fighters and unstable state governments. Soon the threat of these BOWs began to be felt around the world. Faced with the new Umbrella-like crisis, the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium knew they would have to take immediate action. It was then that the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance was formed to fight the threats from BOWs. I see. BSAA were the ones featured in Revelations. Upon its initial foundation, only 11 elite individuals were made part of the BSAA. Their job was limited to that of observers to armies and police units around the world that conducted counter-bioterrorism operations. Unfortunately, the world's bioterrorism problem was much bigger than anyone had anticipated, and so a new course of action was required to handle the problem. To that end, consideration was given to creating a team that could react instantly to threats. BSAA was still only a civilian-led organization. It could not operate freely in sovereign nations, and thus were unable to conduct investigations, make pertinent arrests, or even use force when the situation dictated it. It was clear now that the threat of bioterrorism was now the entire world's problem and something that would have to be done. BSAA was then reformed under the UN's jurisdiction. As a UN-controlled special forces team, the BSAA's acceptance by the UN's member states was taken as a given. The truth of the matter was that only 70% of the member states would approve of BSAA activities on their soil. The remainder of these states would only approve BSAA activities in their countries on a conditional basis. That's how the current incarnation of the BSAA was formed. The BSAA's headquarters was located in England, but was further detailed, any further details of the location were not released to the public. Since the BSAA team had to be able to be deployed within 12 hours, it was assumed that they were located near an airport hub or an Air Force base. Some sources claim that the BSAA had bases in the area under their jurisdiction. The following is a list of areas under the jurisdiction of the respective BSAA branches. European headquarters, Europe and Western Russia. Middle Eastern branch, the Middle Eastern part of Africa. North America branch, the entire North America continent. Chris Redfield stationed here. South America branch, the entire South American continent. West Africa branch, the western part of the African continent. Shiva Alamar stationed here, so these are the events of Resident Evil 5. East African branch, the eastern part of the African continent. Far East branch, Eastern Russia, and the countries east of India. Oceania branch. Australia is the center of operations for Oceania. Antarctica, where Umbrella's Antarctica base was located, falls under the jurisdiction of the Oceanian branch. Each BSAA branch had a considerable number of people on their tactical teams, most of them coming from police, special forces, and militaries around the world. Support staff for the teams is also quite large, and they came mainly from government organizations in different countries. There were many groups of experts on the staff that provided technical, medical, physical, and mental support to the teams. The BSAA development teams were divided into two groups. The first group was the Special Operations Unit. The Special Operations Unit were sanctioned to infiltrate an area, engage in combat, and subdue offenders. Teams were usually comprised of 12 members, and each team was divided into 3 4-man cells. A special feature of the SOU is the flexibility of its personnel during operations. In order to match the scale of an operation, cells from other teams are brought in on a regular basis. For one specific joint operation, there were 70 elite members working together. Bandit Chant is currently the leader of the Alpha team for this operation. The team is comprised of its own standard team along with cells from other teams. The designation of Alpha team will only be useful for this operation. Reports indicated that because unknown BOWs are involved, the efficacy of the tactical team's methods for handling them may be low, and consideration is being given to the strong points that raise their efficacy. A lot of reading. Another key part of the BSA is the Special Operations Agent, SOA. Usually they're referred to as just agents, and then like the SOU, agents work alone. Agents are primarily involved in investigations and espionage activities, and as such, they are considered the eyes and ears of the BSAA. During certain operations, it may become difficult for tactical teams to penetrate to the front, so it's up to the agents to carry out the missions. During these types of missions, a two-man cell is the basic deployment unit required to carry out the mission. Sometimes agents must go beyond the jurisdiction of a BSAA branch to carry out their mission. Many of them are dispatched to areas with unlawful activities. This mission sees Agent Chris Redfield in that role. Agents who work alone are highly capable, are ranked higher than SOU members. Agents are not chosen for their abilities for technical prowess, but for their psychological state and aptitude in handling situations. In actual skills and abilities, they may be outperformed by SOU members. The BSAA is a public organization with an international staff. Owing to the logistics of running such an organization, it's a well-known fact. Most of their funding comes from the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium. While this relationship has been the target of much criticism, the consortium's funding removes the financial burden from participatory nations, and as such, any motivation to change the situation and incur unwanted expenses. As for the consortium, their sponsorship acts as a much-needed industry-wide PR service. So far, this partnership has been beneficial to all parties involved. A final note, the 11 members who are part of the BSAA from the beginning are highly respected within the organization and are known as the Original 11. The name comes from the Original 7, who are the 7 astronauts selected for Project Mercury. One of the Original 11 is Chris Redfield. A number of other members of the Original 11 also work alongside many of the tactical teams. Magini. Listed below what is currently known regarding his Las Plagas parasites. The only recently discovered, the parasite known as Las Plagas was sealed away under the family castle of Castilla and Ramon Salazar for many generations. The parasite attaches itself to the human host and is assimilated by the central nervous system. Infected humans lose all rational thinking faculties and are wholly subject to control by another type of plaga known as a control plaga, usually another infected human. Hosts may lack rational thought function, but they still retain human-level intelligence, such as the ability to understand and communicate with each other. You can also use tools and are surprisingly crafty when working in groups against an enemy. Then, as Kennedy documented this encounter with these infected humans in the Kennedy report. His report, they refer to as Ganados. The presence of Las Plagas in the mission has been confirmed. It's currently unknown how the parasites discovered in Europe came to be present in Africa. Bioweapons smuggler Ricardo Irving is one for questioning regarding this matter. This information was obtained by the BSAA's Alpha team at a great personal risk to themselves. The report indicated that the Las Plagas sample was extracted from Europe and has undergone biological and genetic modification, creating a more effective and potentially dangerous biological weapon. This modified Las Plagas has been classified by researchers as Type 2. The presence of the Type 2 Las Plagas has been confirmed to be present in Africa by various intel reports. Type 2's initial infection characteristic varied from the original parasite's infection. The Las Plagas discovered in Europe was injected into humans during the egg phase. They would then reach maturity within the host body, at which point they would assume control of the host's central nervous system. With Type 2, infection occurs from a mature parasite. This requires it to enter the host orally, usually by being forced directly into the potential host's mouth. The observed result of this type of infection method is one of extreme muscular conversions and uncontrolled body spasms. Also of note, whereas the original Las Plagas took anywhere from a few hours to a few days to assimilate a host, Type 2 requires almost zero maturation time. From this point alone, Type 2 is a much more efficient weapon. Infections of this type have already been witnessed by BSAA operatives currently stationed in the area. Type 2 takes over the central nervous system of the infected human, incapacitates normal rational thought faculties. The infected hosts became willing subjects to the ones that controlled them. However, to maximize their effectiveness as a weapon, the persons who command them do not possess a controlled plaga to do so. Hosts retain their intelligence, and the abilities of the host are dependent on the abilities inherent in the human before infection. This is the same as with the original version of Las Plagas parasite. It's been speculated that to raise their proliferation as a weapon, the parasite has been altered so that its host will actively infect others in order to increase their numbers. According to intel reports, Type 2 hosts are apparently known as Magini to weapons dealers. This word comes from the local language meaning eat spirit. Because the codename Type 2 exists, it's presumed that there are subsequent number types, Type 3 and Type 4. No confirmation of this, however, has been acquired at this time. We're going to take the challenge. How far are we in? Are we 30 minutes already? Eesh. Okay, Chris Redfield. Okay, here we go. Listed within this file is a general background information overview of Chris Redfield, used together from various sources. The information listed here is neither complete nor should it be used as a psychological analysis of the subject. Chris Redfield began his military career in the United States Air Force. Possessing a service record replete with both commendations and disciplinary actions, commanding officers have described Chris as uncompromising, possessing unwavering dedication, and having a high level of adaptability. Plus massive guns. It was these traits that saw Chris earn his wings, but also these same traits that brought him into direct conflict with superiors. Able to settle these differences, Chris retired from the United States Air Force. After retirement, Chris was scouted by Raccoon City Special Forces Stars because of his superior firearm and hand-to-hand combat skills, along with his qualifications as both fixed an aircraft and helicopter pilot. Joining the Stars team, Chris was designated as point man for Alpha Team. This point man has his duty to scout and secure positions ahead of the team. Duties required him to not only be a good shooter and fighter, but also be able to use a wide array of weaponry. It was in this area where he excelled, showing the ability to handle anything from small arms to large weapons and the flexibility to use them as the situation dictated. Chris's performance with Stars was exemplary. Here he finally found his niche. Fate had other plans in mind. Unbeknownst to him, the next chapter in his story was about to unfold on the fateful night of July 1998. Stars Bravo team responded to reports of disappearances as the surrounding areas of Raccoon City abruptly went radio silent. Alpha team was sent in to investigate. Shortly after the helicopter touched down, they were attacked by wild as ravenous canines known as BW Cerberus, forced to take refuge in a nearby mansion. The mansion was in reality the Arclay research facility for the pharmaceutical giant Umbrella. It was at this facility that they developed bioweapons and conducted uncounted illegal experiments. Chris and his partner Jill were forced to combat numerous BOWs as part of an active tactical research plan devised by Albert Wesker. Wesker was the commanding officer of Stars and therefore Chris and Jill's superior. While all his actions were done at the behest of the Umbrella Corporation, Wesker used his rank in Stars to manipulate Chris and Jill. Wesker unleashed several BOWs in the mansion in order to gather data for his own ends. This tragedy in the Arclay Mountains became known as the Mansion Incident. It ended with Chris and Jill destroying the creature known as Tyrant, the death of Wesker, and the destruction of the laboratory. Having survived the incident of the mansion, Chris attempted to notify the authorities regarding Umbrella's activities, but all his warnings were ignored due to Umbrella's powerful sway. Having exhausted his option, he attempted to notify the US government of the situation. This too, however, proved fruitless. He knew that taking on such a large corporate entity alone would not be easy. It might in fact prove fatal, but in the end he was left with no other choice. Chris continued his investigation on his own. Without informing his family of his intentions, he soon departed for Europe. Sheesh, this is going to be long. Chris wanted to shield his family from any ill effects his investigation might incur, but ironically it brought one of his family members into the fray. When Claire Redfield was unable to get in contact with her brother, she journeyed to Raccoon City to find him. Upon arrival in the city, she found the area washed in the terror brought on by the spread of the T-virus. In that land of death and confusion, Claire met Leon Kennedy. Together they were able to fight their way out of the city. After the Raccoon City ordeal, Claire flew to Paris to investigate Umbrella's activities in Europe, but she was captured and sent to Rockford Island. Chris learned from Leon what happened to Claire. He made his way to Rockford Island to free her. It was there that Chris was confronted with many harsh facts. Umbrella had a research facility in Antarctica. Alexei Ashford was still alive. There was a new virus called T. Veronica. Most surprisingly of all, Albert Wesker was still alive. Well, yeah, because they didn't kill him in RE1. The man behind the horror of the mansion incident. Chris's former commanding officer somehow survived the destruction of the mansion. Once again, Chris was unwittingly thrust into one of Wesker's schemes, and he was forced to face the man whose destiny appeared to be entwined with his own. Intertwined. Chris was easily overpowered by Wesker's inhuman strength, but luck was on Chris's side that day. In the ensuing conflagration that consumed the island, Chris and Wesker's conflict was put on hold for the time being. With his resolve strengthened, Chris determined that no matter what personal cost to himself, Umbrella would fall. Fast forward to 2003. Chris is in the skies over Russia, his partner Jill Valentine by his side. At this point, Umbrella was in dire straits. In the wake of the destruction of Raccoon City, the company became embattled in litigation. Their stock price plummeted. It was only a matter of time before Umbrella collapsed. It was during this time that Chris learned of Umbrella's plans to develop a new type of BOW. Chris and Jill had obtained information and were headed to the Cox's laboratory where the T-Alos plan was being conducted in secret. They were to rendezvous with an anti-bioterrorism unit and attack the location. Not long after this incident, the once seemingly untouchable Umbrella was officially no more. The seed that Umbrella sowed, however, would continue to reap tragedy for the world. POWs were no longer restricted to areas of conflict, but were now being used in terrorist attacks against innocent civilians. At this time, that Chris and Jill joined the BSAA, a group dedicated to eliminating those bioweapons. Two then traverse the world together, partners in the world to bring about bioterrorists to justice. Shadow of Umbrella still loomed large, though, as they would soon discover. I'm going to skip Shiva's. Anything that's not important, I'm just going to skip. Chris and Jill went to question Umbrella's founder, Oswald Spencer, about Wesker's whereabouts. They were greeted by the sight of Umbrella founder lying crumpled on the floor and the bloodstained figure of Wesker standing over him. This would be the third confrontation between Chris and Wesker. This time the confrontation ended in tragedy as Jill, seeing no other option, made the ultimate sacrifice to stop Wesker. With one last effort, she charged Wesker and threw both herself and him over the side of the cliff. The BSA searched for Jill's body for 3 months, but no trace of her was ever found. What game was that in where we fight Jill? Was that 5? I want to say it's 5. I don't think it was 6. I think it was 5. Yeah, I think it was 5. So this occurred before 5, for sure. After 3 months of searching with no success, Jill Valentine was officially declared dead by the BSAA. No one knows what promises Chris made in front of Jill's empty grave, but following her loss, he redoubled his efforts to eradicate all bioorganic weapons, wherever they may be. Initially stationed at BSA's North American branch, his investigation soon took him around the world. He became involved in so many operations that he soon had more missions to his name than any other BSAA member. During one of his investigations, Chris learned of an upcoming bioweapon deal in Africa in connection with a man named Ricardo Irving. Irving's name has come up quite often in late association with bioweapon smuggling. After informing the BSAA African branch about Irving, Chris urgently requested permission to participate in the operation to arrest Irving. Again, this would be a great film, recapping all of this. I mean, could they fit it in one film? Would they have to make like a trilogy out of it? I don't know. Probably you have to make a trilogy. Encompass all the events. As for the reasons he wished to participate in this mission, Chris would not comment. Whether he's withholding information or not is unclear. As one of the most respected BSAA agents, his presence in the operation greatly increases the chances of success, thus his request has been granted. Yeah, Shiva, I think I'm going to skip. 36, she's a lose. Any of these that are like specific to 5, I think I'm going to skip. So like Tricell, Excella, Gion, U8. Maybe Tricell I could do. Any of these shorter ones I might do. Yeah, like the Tribe, I don't really care. Shiva, I don't really care. Tricell is a conglomerate organization comprised of shipping, natural resources development, and pharmaceutical divisions. Tricell's history dates back to the period known as the Age of Exploration. The forebear to Tricell was Travis Trading, a company owned by the wealthy European merchant Tom Travis. The company profited greatly from expansive trading with the Orient, but laid the groundwork for what would become Tricell's shipping division. Travis Trading entered the 19th century as profitable trading venture. Henry Travis, the youngest of 7 siblings, invested much of his fortune into the exploration of Africa. During this period, the exploits of explorers David Livingstone had created quite a stir in the newspapers that day. Henry's expedition was inspired by these accounts and his decision to have a great impact on Travis Trading's future. Henry made 5 expeditions to the African continent in order to explore all of its regions. The extensive funds of the Travis family allowed him to continue his research in Africa even though the times when results were not forthcoming. After his 5th and final expedition into Africa, Henry Travis returned to his country a full 34 years after he first left it. Henry compiled the records of his expeditions into an impressive 72-volume set entitled Survey of Natural History. Books covered everything from animals, plants, insects, minerals, topography to the native inhabitants and their native cultures. Histories and traditions. These books also contain extensive records detailing the folklore of various peoples. That's nothing. The tones are a veritable encyclopedia of African continents. Okay, I think I'm going to skip this. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm just going to read Jill and then Wesker, and that'll be it. I don't think anything else is really important in these files. Listed within this file is the general background information of STARS agent Jill Valentine. Pieced together from various sources, the information listed here is neither complete nor should be viewed as a psychological analysis, so similar to Chris. When a crisis situation arises, few soldiers excel to the level of Jill Valentine. She is proficient in the use of various firearms, a master at lockpicking, and is skilled in the disposal of explosives. Jill's talents make her an integral component of any fighting force. Like Chris Redfield, Jill is a member of the STARS Alpha team. She was also involved in the tragedy at the Arclay Research Facility, also known as the Mansion Incident. During the incident, Jill and Chris operated independently, but together discovered the truth behind the facility. They learned that Barry Burton was not really a traitor, but was being controlled by Albert Wesker, captain of the Alpha team. In addition to Wesker's machinations, they also learned the source of the zombie outbreak was due to the release of the T-virus. Umbrella was more than just an ordinary pharmaceutical company. What Jill learned at the Arclay Research Facility would have profound repercussions on the rest of her life. Following their return from the mansion, Chris and Jill attempted to inform the authorities of Umbrella's activities. For all their good intentions, they were met with no movement towards any official investigation into the company. Fed up with the lack of response, the two took it upon themselves to investigate Umbrella. They concentrated their efforts on Umbrella's main base of operations in Europe. As a STARS member entrusted with protecting Raccoon City, Jill chose to remain in the city for the time being and investigate the Umbrella Research Facility there before rendezvousing with Chris in Europe. She was nowhere to be found in RE3. This decision led to her involvement in the Raccoon City incident. During her investigation, rodents infected with the T-virus from the Arclay Research Facility began to spread the virus into the city. The virus quickly spread, infecting a majority of the residents. Umbrella, the perpetrator behind the incident, reacted swiftly. Umbrella sent in the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service to handle the situation. Dispatched the bioweapon Nemesis T-Type to take out any surviving STARS members who Umbrella considered a threat. Jill attempted to escape from Raccoon City, all the while being hunted by the Nemesis T-Type. During this time, she encountered a member of the UBCS team, Carlos Oliveira. Wait, was it Jill? And not Claire in 3? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I was just misremembering it. I think it was Jill, sorry. Again, very forgettable game, RE3. RE2 is only slightly more memorable simply because it featured Leon. Carlos claimed his team was on a rescue mission to save any survivors in Raccoon City. Having no reason to doubt the mission's purpose, he proposed to help Jill escape. Jill, on the other hand, had her doubts. The situation reached critical proportions and Jill did not have the luxury of time. The US government was planning on containing the spread of the virus by launching a special missile strike on the city called Operation Basilisk Terminate. Jill became infected with the T-virus as a result of the Nemesis T-Type. She despaired of ever being able to get out alive. Fortunately for her, Carlos was there to help. Carlos obtained a cure to the T-virus infection and gave it to Jill. After her recovery, she worked with Carlos and they successfully escaped from the city. In 2003, after Operation Talos, Jill and Chris became two of the original 11 founding members of the BSA and joined them in their fight against bioweapons and bioterrorism around the world. Chris and Jill stopped bioweapons in Asia, destroyed bioweapons labs in South America, arrested smugglers in Europe, and patrolled the world in an attempt to swamp out bioweapons. Throughout their activities, while they may have suspected the long fingers of Umbrella as being involved, they never had any conclusive proof. Those long fingers, however, would turn over to be connected to the hands of Umbrella's founder, Oswald Spencer. The pair received intel on Spencer's whereabouts, rushed off to arrest him, only to find the former captain and hated enemy, Albert Wesker. Seeing Spencer's crumpled corpse on the ground, the two changed their plans to arrest Wesker instead. In a 2-on-1 fight, Chris and Jill should have had the advantage, but Wesker's strength and agility were well beyond that of any normal human. For all their training, Jill and Chris were no match for Wesker. Yeah, the dude was a superhuman. As Wesker was about to end Chris's life, Jill made the ultimate sacrifice. Lunging at Wesker, she threw both herself and him out of a window and over the side of the cliff. Extremely reckless, and not at all resulting in Wesker's demise, as we know from the events of RE5. Chris could do nothing as he watched his partner fall to her death. And she didn't actually die. right? Because she was in 6, wasn't she? She was in 5. We know that. She was in 5. He wasn't actually a playable character in 6. Chris was, right? Leon was, Ada was, and Jake was, but Jill was not a playable character in 6. Oh my gosh. But she was definitely in 5. BSA launched a full-scale search operation, but neither Jill's body... she's one of the mini-boss fights in 5. Jill Valentine was officially declared dead on November 23rd, 2006. Her name was added to the list of BSA members who died in the line of duty. Jill's story did not end there. The fall did not kill Jill nor Wesker. Though badly hurt and unconscious, Jill was saved by Wesker. After giving her the medical treatment she required, he placed her in a cryogenic sleep. Once the Ouroboros plan was finalized, Wesker intended to use her as the first test subject. This was Wesker's way of exacting his revenge. Fortunately for Jill, luck was on her side. The apparatus monitoring her vital signs detected some abnormalities. Something was happening inside Jill's body. Wesker's curiosity was piqued. Further investigation showed that a mutated form of the T-virus was still inside her body. It was a remnant from her infection in Raccoon City. I think Revelations was the last time she was a playable character. Yeah, 3 and Revelations were the last time she was a playable character, yeah. The cure she was given was supposed to eradicate all traces of the virus in her body, but instead it caused the virus to go into a dormant state. Her extended period in cryogenic sleep somehow reactivated the virus. Shortly after being reactivated, the T-virus completely disappeared from her body, but it left something else in its place. Wesker found that Jill's body now contained powerful antibodies to the virus. All those years, the T-virus was inside her body, forced her to develop a defense system that was nothing short of miraculous. This discovery would help further Wesker's ambitions. The development of the Ouroboros virus, the centerpiece of the Ouroboros plan, had proven to be quite difficult. The Ouroboros virus, developed from the progenitor flower, proved to be too poisonous for humans to be of use. Instead of spurring the next step in human evolution, it only invited death. Wesker theorized that using Jill's antibodies could make the virus less poisonous. He kept Jill alive solely to produce antibodies for his research. Jill, who had reviled bioweapons and devoted her life to eradicating them, was ironically being used to develop the most terrible bioweapon of all. After much research and experimentation, Wesker finally perfected the Ouroboros virus. Jill's participation in its development meant she was no longer a suitable test subject. Pure and unadulterated antibodies with high resistance to the virus permeated her body. Wesker decided he would find a suitable use for her elsewhere. During the research in the progenitor virus, an ancillary chemical was discovered. The researchers referred to it simply as P30. When administered to test subjects, it would not only give them superhuman strength, but also render them highly susceptible to control. P30 was ultimate performance enhancer. The aims of the Ouroboros plan were to create a new breed of humans, as P30's application to this plan was inconsequential. For the time being, it could be marketed as a product and gain further additional funding. Research into creating the ultimate soldier who didn't resist orders was carried out simultaneously on Los Plagas and P30. Unfortunately, the latter had a severe drawback. Effects of P30 would only last for a very short time. The injection of P30 was metabolized and expelled by the body at an expeditious rate, requiring re-administration of the drug at frequent intervals. This greatly lessened the viability of such a product as a long-term performance enhancer. The only counter to such a drawback was to attach a device to the subject that would continually administer the drug. Again, the Jill boss fight in 5. While P30's effects were brief, it was still a powerful and effective drug. The effects of continual administration were untested, so in order to research the aspect further, an administrative device was attached to Jill. An external device was attached to Jill's chest and would continually administer the drug to her body. With her free will constantly being usurped, she remained a servant to Excel and Wesker until Chris and she would destroy the administrative device. Again, the events of RE5. Hey Wesker, this will be the end of today's episode. The Mansion Incident. The tragedy of Raccoon City, Rockford Island, Umbrella's Antarctic Research Facility, and the Umbrella Caucus Research Facility in Russia. The kidnapping of the U.S. President's daughter. One man was involved either directly or indirectly with each and every one of these incidents, Albert Wesker. I'm really reading this more so for the history, because Wesker does not survive the events of 5. So, yeah. The motivation behind all of Wesker's actions can be found in the current incident in Africa. Wesker had already obtained samples of various organisms and viruses, including the T-virus, the G-virus, the T. veronica virus, and Las Plagas. All of these were eagerly and enthusiastically received by Umbrella's former rival companies, who compensated him greatly for each. This is missing one, right? Progenitor. Yeah, that's the one that's missing. With wealth, power, and glory, Wesker appeared to have everything a person could ever want. Wesker, however, was not interested in material gains. He was like, yeah, superhero. All too familiar sense of trepidation continued to gnaw him. The source of this uneasiness being Umbrella's founder, Oswald Spencer. During his time at Umbrella, Wesker could never ascertain what Spencer's true intentions were. And this is like the coolest part of 5, too, was the boss fight with Wesker. Spencer's extensive funding of BOW research was unheard of in his fields. The whole reason for producing bioweapons was that it could be done relatively inexpensively when combined with an own weapons delivery system. Like, Wesker was basically Neo from the Matrix. The dude could dodge bullets. Spencer's extreme investment in BOWs seemed unnecessary. Why would Spencer need such BOWs in the first place? To find the answer to that question, Wesker joined Umbrella's information department. Even after the downfall of Umbrella, the doubts continued to haunt Wesker. To find the answers he needed, Wesker began to search out Spencer. The only problem was that even before Umbrella's dissolution, Spencer had removed himself from Umbrella's day-to-day operations. Wesker had used every source and resource at his disposal. All this time, money, and connections. Eventually, he ascertained Spencer's long-hidden whereabouts. On the first night of autumn, as thunder and lightning raged in the skies above, Wesker arrived at the ancient castle in Europe where Spencer resided. Wesker expected the old man to be surprised by his presence, but instead the withered old eyes of Spencer lit up with dark delight as he spoke. "You're back." Words barely audible amidst his cough-racked laugh. Wesker had his doubts about Spencer before. He didn't know what to make of him now. He only knew at that moment that his seemingly feeble old man had been in control of everything that had transpired at Umbrella. Even Wesker's own actions through the years had been controlled and manipulated by this decrepit old man. With this sudden realization, Wesker now knew the source of his anxiety for all those years. Appearing to read Wesker's thoughts, Spencer laid out everything to him. The development of bioorganic weapons was only a means of achieving his true goal, the forced evolution of mankind via viruses. And I would say the contrary was true. He was basically wiping out humanity. It would be the end of the current form of humanity and the birth of a new superior human race. With this new race, he would build his utopia, with himself as God on Earth. In order to realize this dream, he required 3 things. The progenitor virus. Without this key component, his dreams would be no more than abstract ideas. Once he discovered the progenitor virus, he had the foundation on which all his subsequent plans would be built. 2. Umbrella Corporation. The manufacture of bioweapons was the perfect method of conducting his research on progenitor virus. Is this about Wesker or is this about Spencer? Profits gained through Umbrella's research were secondary to his goal. The third thing Spencer needed in his grand vision was Wesker himself. He knew what was required for his utopia. He also knew he would need a human race. What would that new breed of humans be like? I mean, if everyone turned out like Wesker, I mean, his experiments were definitely successful. The thing is, Wesker was like an anomaly, basically. Like, Wesker's the only person that had those powers. The progenitor virus would spur natural selection upon the population. That was the fundamental premise behind Spencer's plan. If the new breed of humans brought about the selection process were unwilling to share in his vision, there'd be unwanted complications. Like, not even his son had those abilities. The fourth stage of evolution would give the surviving humans increased strength and intelligence, but it would not affect a person's knowledge, logic, or general character. If any indolent or unsavory individual survived to be a part of his new race, it would be rely on Spencer's utopia. Spencer was not about to have his vision strained, so he enacted a plan to ensure that would not happen. The plan was called the Wesker Plan, which was named after the chief researcher at the time. According to the plan, hundreds of children born to parents of superior intellect from all nationalities will be collected. If their knowledge, logic, and self-will cannot be altered by genetic manipulation, then Spencer himself would instill his values into these children by whatever means deemed necessary. The children were all given the name Wesker. For completion of their indoctrination and manipulation, they were placed into selected controlled environments in various locations around the world, even under Umbrella's watchful eye. Children themselves would be kept unaware they were being monitored. Umbrella's concealed aid, they all received the best educations available in the fields they pursued. After a few years, one child who showed particular promise was sent to Umbrella's training facility in Raccoon City. This Wesker's child's name was Albert. Spencer was quite pleased by all of Albert's actions, and if the other Wesker children were like him, Spencer would have nothing but quality individuals for his new race of humanity. Spencer then enacted the second phase of his plan. All the Wesker children would be administered an experimental virus. The virus was administered to screen out the more gifted to the Wesker children. Some took the virus on the recommendation of a friend, others were given the virus as part of their medical treatment, still others had forcibly been administered it. Albert Wesker was no different. His partner William Birkin gave him the experimental virus and he administered it to himself. The screening process turned out to be a little too selective. Most of the Wesker children died, leaving only a few survivors. Albert Wesker was one of those survivors, and he disappeared shortly after. Spencer was unconcerned by the development. There was a fail-safe device attached to every Wesker, Spencer's existence. There was a discomfort Albert had felt throughout his life. All Wesker children were programmed to seek Spencer out, which manifested itself as a growing anxiety within each of the subjects. Just as Spencer had predicted, Albert soon came to him. Unfortunately, Spencer had made one miscalculation. His fail-safe only worked for as long as it remained a mystery. As soon as the mystery was revealed, Wesker is no longer needed to restrain himself. All that was impeding Wesker was a feeble old man on death's doorstep. The right to be a god. That right is now mine. With these words, Wesker broke from the shackles that Spencer had laid on him. Only a random chance that brought his former subordinates Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine to Spencer's mansion at that exact time. Wesker took it as a sign. Weak would always resist the will of the chosen. With a renewed purpose, Wesker reflected on his own evolution and the evolution of the human race. After the incident at the Spencer estate, he went underground and used the news of his death to fulfill his activities. He achieved his goal of obtaining the virus and capital he needed for his position at Umbrella. Now he put all his efforts into bringing his Ouroboros plan to fruition, thereby setting himself up as a god over the new generation of humanity. So where was he during the events of REs 2, 3, and 4? Not clear. Not even clear where he was during the events of RE1. Okay, there you have it, guys. Who-wee. Done in just under an hour, dude. So much information. Again, like, dang. Hope you've enjoyed these playthroughs of RE5 and 6 to come, Cyberpunk 2077 and RE7. So stay tuned for that. Gotta see if I can talk after all that talking. Like, comment, share, subscribe, donate. Venmo Stormer Show. This has been Stormer Show signing off and signing out. Thanks for watching. Have a nice night. Until the next episode, and until next time.